Hey guys, Final here, hope you're doing well. Welcome to my Valtan Gate 1 guide. In my raid guides, I break down the fight by firstly going over the key mechanics and then key basic attacks that deal significant damage or loss of control. During each section, I'll try my best to include knowledge of movement, positioning that will help you increase your survivability and output. Legion raids introduce a new mechanic we've not used before in a raid setting known as Esters. The Esters are powerful ultimate-like abilities that can be used to pass stagger, damage, or defensive checks during the raid. We have the option of 3 different Esters. For Valtan Legion raid, they are Thyrane, Way, and Balthor. The Esther gauge fills throughout the encounter as time passes or by fulfilling certain conditions such as counters in Gate 2. Only the raid captain, signified by the purple crown, has the ability to use an Esther skill once the gauge is full. If the raid captain dies during the encounter, the only way to use the Esther skill is to transfer the raid captaincy to another player alive on the battlefield. With that out the way, let's begin. As a DPS, you'll want to bring health potions, whirlwind grenades, panacea, and sacred charm. Once you become comfortable with the fight, you can swap panacea and whirlwind grenade for atropine and dark grenades. As a support, you'll want to bring health potions, dark grenades, awakening potion, and sacred charm. For party composition, I highly recommend having a support in each party while optimizing synergy buffs with specific emphasis on crit synergy in each party. Before the fight begins, you'll want to set your positioning at the battle workshop like so. You'll want classes with a high amount of stagger in the first 4 positions, and player 1 should be given raid captaincy. Gate 1 consists of 4 phases and 1 key mechanic. Unlike Argos and Guardian raids, normal and hard mode Legion raid bosses have a visible HP bar that directly correlates with their use of key mechanics. You should get into the habit of refreshing yourself on the number of HP bars remaining to help prepare for incoming mechanics, as well as basing your individual plays such as cooldown measurement based on the HP bar. For example, you don't want to be using your awakening or long DPS cooldowns during phase transitions. You'll be fighting the purple wolf from 50 bars down to 45. You'll want to be using your awakening as there's going to be a long transition right after this phase. Upon hitting 45, the purple wolf teleports to the middle of the map and transforms into a red wolf. Being positioned by this tree will help you quickly re-engage without being hit by the transformation AoE. After 50 seconds of fighting the red wolf, the blue wolf will join the fight. 2 people in the raid will have a marker above their heads, red indicating aggro on the red wolf and blue indicating aggro on the blue wolf. The 2 wolves need to be separated from one another for them to take damage, so the person with the red marker will usually go to 12 o'clock and the person with blue marker will go to 6 o'clock. Players with the light buff will want to be hitting the blue wolf to deal full damage as it invades with a 10% damage reduction buff, while players without any buff will want to hit the red wolf. At 30 bars, the red wolf will teleport into the middle and the key mechanic will begin. The raid should now split off into the positions that you allocated before beginning the fight. The mechanic itself is pretty straightforward. The wolf will begin to channel a timed stagger check as indicated by the orange bar that appears, while simultaneously spawning 8 orbs, 4 red, 4 blue near the allocated positions. If the same colored orb is absorbed in sequence, the boss will wipe the raid. So a proper absorb sequence will go blue red until all 8 orbs are absorbed. The raid wipe mechanic will be void if you manage to successfully stagger the boss in time. So have player 1 immediately eat the first orb and use Esther Way facing the red wolf, followed by players 2, 3, and 4 absorbing their orbs in sequence, while the remaining 4 players kite their orbs in a clockwise direction until the stagger mechanic is complete. Any orbs absorbed after the red wolf is staggered will not trigger the raid wipe. If your party's DPS is too high, you'll find that the Esther gauge will not be full in time for the stagger check, thereby forcing your raid to absorb all 8 orbs as well as doing the timed stagger check without way. Unless your group is coordinated and understand the mechanic thoroughly, stick to the easy method of holding DPS and making sure you have Esther Way available for this mechanic. It's important that I mention that orbs will tether to the players closest to it, so when your raid spreads for this mechanic, make sure they don't spread too far away, which will cause situations where one player has 2 orbs tethered to them. Be close enough that the orb tethers to the correct player, but not too close as to absorb the orb out of sequence. When absorbing all 8 orbs in sequence while not being on comms, you'll want to be looking at the buff indicator below the boss's HP. This number will increase as a player absorbs an orb, thereby showing you which player should be the next to absorb their orb. The red wolf will disappear and the raid will begin to fight the blue wolf. After a time, similar to when you fought the red wolf, this time the red wolf will join the fight and the two wolves will need to be separated again. If you have the light buff, you'll want to attack the red wolf as it's the invader for full damage. At 15 bars, the blue wolf will teleport into the middle and the key mechanic will repeat itself. After the stagger check, the blue wolf will start its transformation while firing off blue projectiles, shortly followed by a collapsing AoE attack. To avoid the majority of this damage, the raid should move all the way to the safe spot in the 6 o'clock corner until the AoE has ended. The blue wolf will now transform back into the purple wolf that you fought in phase 1. This purple wolf can use any abilities that the red wolf and blue wolf uses. After a period of time, the player farthest from the purple wolf will become feared and a basic stagger check will begin. Failing the stagger will result in high damage dealt to the feared player. Failing the stagger twice will result in a raid wipe. Make sure that players understand that if you're feared, you ping your location immediately. The red wolf is arguably the most difficult of the three wolves, as its scratch attacks inflict a stacking bleed debuff that emits an AoE in a horizontal line from the wolf once the debuff reaches 3 stacks. This line deals high damage and staggers players that it hits. To counter this, you bring Panacea for a personal cleanse and Sacred Charm to cleanse your party members. The majority of the red wolf's attacks can be dodged by staying behind the wolf. The red wolf will jump backwards and create 3 faint red lines in a conal AoE. Being hit by any of the lines will give you a stack of bleed. The red wolf howls and creates multiple lines of AoE, afterwards performing a backstep and creating 3 additional extending lines of AoE. The red wolf will howl and jump to the player with aggro, perform a quick scratch into a spin attack, followed by an AoE outside the melee perimeter. So the key here is to identify where the red wolf is jumping to, wait out the spin attack and quickly move into its melee range to avoid the AoE knockup. The red wolf will vanish shortly to reappear on the player with aggro with a scratch attack. It's quickly followed up by a wide spin attack which will knock out players. The red wolf will become a tornado while also summoning a tornado barrier that pushes players back into the perimeter. It's also possible to leave the perimeter by using a movement ability with super armor, such as your spacebar. Unlike the red wolf, the majority of the blue wolf's attacks tend to be ranged or AoE based abilities. The blue wolf has 3 different types of AoE. You can identify which AoE ability he will use next by looking at his left upper arm. A green band on its left upper arm means that it will throw multiple expanding AoE that have a safe spot in the middle. The best way to avoid this damage is to simply move out of the AoE as the safe spots tend to overlap. A red band on its left arm means that it will throw multiple red landmines that detonate after a few seconds without any AoE indicator. The AoE range is deceptively large and deals quite significant damage, so move out until you're sure that you're safe. A blue band on its left arm means that it will throw multiple blue landmines that detonate with blue projectiles that freeze upon contact. As explained earlier, the purple wolf can use all the basic abilities of both red and blue wolf. The chasing tornado ability, which instead of chasing, fires off projectiles that can be avoided by simply moving into the path of where the last projectile was fired. That's it for Gate 1. There are some abilities I chose not to cover so as to not overload you guys with information, as they don't deal significant damage or apply loss of control in normal and hard mode. They will be covered at a later date when Valtan Hell mode is released. As far as difficulty is concerned, this fight is just a prelude and is fairly straightforward. Most groups, normal and hard, will be able to brute force this fight pretty easily in under 2 to 5 attempts. Your success in this fight will come down to how well you can avoid being knocked up and coordinate the key mechanic. For players that watch this video beyond the first few weeks following Valtan's release, I want to remind you guys not to be scared of jumping into Legion Raid. Set aside any fears of failing mechanics or being yelled at and just give it a go. Legion Raid is Lost Ark's premier content and you'll only be able to master the fights through trial and error. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you back for Valtan Gate 2.